Good evening. My name is Jimmy Tomlin. This is my informative speech. This is my crowd, my three audience members. Alright. So according to Dr. Henderson, a psychiatrist and writer for the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, it is hard for many of us to recall the important people in our childhood without thinking of those teachers who particularly influenced us for better or for worse. All of us have had some experience in the public education. Whether a student or employee, we also all want to be those positive influences on people's lives. After working in a public middle school for the last 3 years, I've gotten the opportunity to be a small part of several students' lives. According to God's word, Christ calls us to be fishers of men, according to Matthew 4:19, to guide children down the right path, Proverbs 22:6, and to be generous, Proverbs 11:25. These 3 points are highly valued by Christ and the 3 basic responsibilities that teachers get to practice every day. During the minutes that follow, I will give basic knowledge on the job field, discuss the 3 responsibilities that fulfill things valued by Christ, and last, I will give a personal story of how I was able to use faith to guide a student. First, I would like to talk about teaching as a career. Teaching as a career is difficult yet rewarding. The 2017 median pay for a teacher was $57,720 per year. That was nationally. The typical entry level nationally for an education is bachelor's degree. And in 2016, the number of education jobs in the nation was 630,300. Middle school teachers educate students typically in 6th through 8th grade. They help students build on the fundamentals that they will require to move to the next level of high school education. The work environment tends to be a middle school, obviously. It's a public or private school, and they generally work during school hours. However, they use weekends and after hours, as well as some summers to do lesson plans and prepare for the class. As you can see, this is a huge time commitment with not so great pay, but the influence you can have on your students makes up for the pay. As a teacher, students look up to you and look to you for guidance. This gives you the perfect opportunity to show them the love of Christ through generosity and guiding them down the right path. According to Jason Nelson, a writer for the Journal of Negro Education, Jada, a public school employee, sees her own religious identity as being very much in play for classroom, conversation, and example. This example that Jada shows in her classroom is planting seeds in the lives of her students. In Matthew chapter 4, verse 19 of the New International Version, it says, "Come follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." Another thing that students looking up to you allows you to do is guide them into a successful future. In Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6 of the New International Version, it says, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." This verse shows us that Christ values guiding children into successful futures. The last responsibility of a teacher I'm going to talk about that Christ values is generosity. In Proverbs chapter 11, verse 25 of the New International Version, it says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." This verse shows us that Christ will reward generosity. And if Christ will reward something, he must value it. Which brings me to my story. My first year working for the public school system was probably the hardest. I had to learn how to appropriately mix my faith with the laws and policies of public education. It did not take me long to form connections with students, and one day during a basketball game, one of those connections was really put to the test. I had a student athlete who kept making horrible comments on the court towards other players and the referees. I had finally heard enough and pulled him off the court and benched him. The next day at practice, I was talking to the student about why he felt it was necessary to make those horrible comments. He said something that would change my outlook on public education for the rest of my life. He said, "My mom told me I'm only going to amount to a thug so that's what I'm going to be. I spent the last 3 years pushing this student to his limits. I talked to him about how just because people tell us we have to be a certain way does not mean we have to be. If you notice, I have all of these letters up here on the table, but this letter right here, this letter is from that student. He explained to me how I not only changed his life, but the life of his family as well. That student is applying for a basketball scholarship to a private high school for next year. He and his family have also started attending church again, and his mother and grandmother have told me they never would have imagined him being who he is today. This is just one of the many examples of the way an educator can change a student's life and honor Christ. Which brings me to my conclusion. As I just stated, teaching is a difficult, time-demanding job, but the reward is amazing. As students grow, they need those examples to look to, those people that will guide them to the right path. And Christ calls us to this job, to be generous and to share his love and plant the seeds. So if you're looking for a rewarding job where you can change lives and honor God, then look into teaching. You will not regret it.